Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is victory at sea. It's a World War II naval RTS. I would hesitate to call it a simulator. I don't believe it's really got the depth for that. Hardy, hardy, har. Just get that pun out there right now. It'll probably be reused several times throughout the video. Warning has been duly given. It's by a company called Evil Twin. They haven't really come up with too much of note, especially not on PC, mostly mobile games, and Victory at Sea is a bit of a strange departure from what they've done previously, which you may almost be able to describe as a passion project. It does sound like that, doesn't it? There's so many companies that start by making mobile games that are kind of throwaway, and then they make a game that is obviously the game they wanted to make, and that's always nice to see. Question is Victory at Sea worthy of your time? Firstly, to the options menu, not much to really report here. Graphics slider, and that's about it. Never really too happy with seeing only graphic sliders. And then for some reason, the resolution options are on a separate screen, which is weird because, look at this. Look at this space right here. You could have put that in. Frankly, almost everything could have been fit on one screen, but they didn't do that for some reason. You do at least have separate audio sliders, which is nice, and then customizable controls. The majority of the game is controlled by the mouse, so you don't really need to worry about this too much, but it's always nice to have the option regardless. Alright, so what is it? Well, you've got three modes. You've got campaign, historical, scenario, and custom battle. Campaign game is... I would actually describe it as kind of Mountain Blade Light with warships, where you roll around the Pacific, or not necessarily the Pacific, could be the Mediterranean or the Atlantic if you wish. You start with a destroyer, you build up your fleet, and you eventually do missions, gain more war bonds, level up, and gain access to larger ships. And that's really how that works out. Historical scenarios are based on real history events. So you've got things like the Battle of the Denmark Strait, which was the battle where the Bismarck completely wrecked the HMS Hood, the battlecruiser Pride of the Royal Navy, and instigated a series of events which culminated in this, the final battle here, where the Bismarck had been crippled by swordfish torpedo bombers and was then surrounded by Royal Navy ships and obliterated. Such is the way of it. And you got a couple of others here as well. I believe there's about... yeah, there's 6, basically. And in this mode, you can choose either side. So if you actually wish to play the Bismarck, let's do that right now, shall we? Why not? If you wish to play the Bismarck, you can do that. So, welcome to Victory at Sea's tactical mode here. So, this is a top-down grid. Now, at any time, you can toggle the tactical mode and go right into this mode, which allows you to see your fully rendered ship and also to control it directly with the mouse, kind of like this. So it's fairly easy to control this. You're probably fairly used to this if you've played any game with boats in it in the past. And you'll want to be concerning yourself with getting optimal firing arcs, as you might imagine, and then firing your guns. So you can see the Bismarck has a fairly ridiculous firing range. Not unsurprising, considering the size of its guns there. You've got your secondary guns here, which can also be used at shorter ranges, and stern guns available too. So that's the Bismarck. But I have another ship right here. In fact, a Ripper-class heavy cruiser over there, which I can switch to, or alternatively, I can order it around with the tactical map. Now, by default, these ships are told to fight and engage and just attack the nearest ship. However, I can change that. I can send it this way, for instance. What has the cruiser got on it? Well, it's got a lot of torpedoes. It has a good number of bow guns as well. So I want to try and maybe broadside, and of course be able to launch my torpedoes in a way that will do damage. So I'm going to send it just kind of at a shallow angle over in this direction. The Bismarck's range is fairly high too. And of course, it's not particularly maneuverable, but I think we want to move here into range. Actually, no, we're not going to do that, because I think it's facing that way already. It'll take a while to turn. So we'll send it over there. Now, you can also select... you can do waypoints, as you can see. I'm not 100% sure how you cancel it, but I think you just do that to cancel it. So if I want to kind of send the Bismarck over here, and then maybe have it make a turn to the left, and then head in this direction, I can do that. Outside of that, you can just order attack on a particular target, defend a current location, and retreat from the battle. And that's about it from the RTS view here. You can also change the speed. So if you're wanting to do tighter maneuvers, you'll probably want to decrease your speed. You can put yourself in reverse, and of course it also allows you to do things like dodge incoming torpedoes. If they're predicting maybe you're going at flank speed, you might want to decelerate to prevent that from happening. Okay. So the Bismarck is probably going to be in firing range relatively shortly. The heavy cruisers can take most of the pounding, and then the Bismarck's hopefully going to finish them off here. My hope is that the heavy cruiser will be able to engage with torpedoes, but the range for torpedoes is fairly small, as you can probably see. I'm going to get in a little bit shallower there. Now, what I can then do, of course, is hop into any of these ships that I want, and we're just going to lower the time dilation effect. There we go. So we're now in range, I think, so we can open up with a full broadside of heavy guns. And this is at half speed, so this is at the full RTS simulation speed, and I can go down to almost nothing, or I can actually pause and give orders there, which does make things a bit easier. So my heavy cruisers can take a bit of a pounding, which is fine. It's designed to take a bit of a pounding so the Bismarck can get into range and unload everything. And I'm going to just try and maneuver now, just to make sure that they have a bit of a more difficult time in hitting me. And I'm going to just come in at a shallower angle and try and torpedo them. And then we can switch over to the Bismarck, who... Well, it's a slow bastard, let me put it that way. So I think I actually need to pull the heavy cruiser back at this point, or at least send it out of range of the British ships, because otherwise horrible things are going to end up happening. They already are happening. I'm taking a lot of damage, so I might lose my heavy cruiser. I'm unloading broadsides, and I'm doing some damage to the hood. Not a perfect amount, though. Ooh, that's crippled. Okay. That's bad news. Alright, so we're going to try and make a turn and get out of range before we sink, which is unlikely to happen. Probably shouldn't have sent it ahead at full speed. That was a pretty stupid thing to do. But there you go. So, now we know that that's a bad idea. I think the Bismarck's probably got range on the hood, whereas the hood doesn't, so we should be able to attack from here. You'll see the attack system is fairly simple. You click the weapon you want to click, or you press the hotkey, and then you right-click on the target. Now, the only difference is the situation where you're using torpedoes, where you will launch them and then you will lead the target. So you need to launch them at an angle that you think will actually hit the ship as they move into it. Outside of that, the only other guns you really have to worry about are... Well, I mean, actually none of them. There's just... All of these guns work in the same way. They all kind of have their separate firing arcs and ranges. You have infinite ammo for all of them. And if you're using carriers in your fleet, you will also launch ships. There we go. So as you can see, I'm staying on a very extreme range of the hood there, and I've been able to damage its turbine quite easily. So we're going to try and continue to do that. They're going to try and steam ahead so they can get into range, but I'm going to continue to just unload broadsides. And they might even get into secondary gun range at some point. I don't have a particularly good chance to hit from here. There is a certain degree of skill, because if you click... Let's see. Yeah, clicking on the flag doesn't do anything, but you're basically clicking on the ship or an area of the ocean around the ship, which means that it does require a certain degree of aim. The main problem I've got with it is that the camera angles make it a little bit difficult to properly judge exactly what's going on there. Now, you can change the camera angles. So if we do that, the problem is this one's very short range. Like, this would be ideal if I could zoom out a bit further, but it doesn't let you do that. So you end up at this weird shallow angle that makes it just a little bit more difficult to hit the targets at long ranges than you might imagine. And, I mean, what you're seeing here is the basics of the battle system, and frankly, the battle system is extremely basic. It is an RTS in the sense that you can order ships around like this, but right now I only have one ship remaining in my fleet, and the hood just got absolutely ruined. Maybe one more volley, and then they'll probably sink, so we can finish off the... I think it's the Prince of Wales over there as well. I'm not sure if I actually even have range on him at this point. It almost looks like I do, but I can't quite tell because of the camera angles. I'll certainly give it a shot. I could also fire my stern guns at it as well. And I should be doing both, really, just unloading everything. The Bismarck has a ridiculous fire rate, if you haven't already realized. It's a pretty powerful ship. This also lets you switch to their view, so I'll be able to see what's going on there. Sadly, the level of detail on the ships is not brilliant. They are certainly fairly simple, but this is another way of firing as well. So I can unload a salvo in this general direction while zoomed in on the ship, although that's going to give you very little situational awareness, so switching camera angles is fairly important, and just kind of keep switching camera angles. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see a need to continue to manually control this, other than the fact that there's really that's all you can honestly do. So if I zoom out here, and then I just set the Bismarck to attack, which for some reason isn't working. There we go, now it's working. Then the Bismarck's probably just going to pound that ship into oblivion and kill it. That's exactly what it's currently doing. And then we can just click on the Prince of Wales, so we can have a look at it. And then we can see it getting blown up. Not a particularly hefty piece of strategy, is it? No, actually, what the hell is the Bismarck doing? Like, okay, apparently we can't trust the AI to do the fighting for us. Okay, now he's opening up. I would have just stayed at extreme range, personally, but... well, such is the way of it. Okay. The Bismarck might lose because the AI is apparently idiotic. So there's that. Nah, we shouldn't lose this fight. They can't take too much more pounding, I think. There we go. And that's pretty much the end of the battle, yeah. Once most of their weapon systems are down, that's about all they've got. Come on. Hit the bloody thing. God damn it. How much is it to ask to hit it? I'm actually going to lose. Wow. There we go. No. Okay, we finally blew it up. Jeez. How embarrassing for the Kriegsmarine. Anyway. Outside of maneuvering and trying to get angles of fire, there's not really much more to say about it. To be fair, unfortunately, if you like the idea of large ships blowing each other up, you're probably going to find that most games involve a great degree of that, because really, that's what naval battles are. Maneuver into the right position. Speed reduced. Great. I'm probably never going to catch this damn thing now. It's probably running away. Yeah, it is. It's leaving. So I'm actually going to lose the battle because my engine got damaged and I can't catch the hood anymore. So there, that's that. I have no reason, I think, to continue that because there's no way I'm catching up to the hood at this point. There we go. And that's the scenario just done and dusted. Maneuvering, getting firing arcs and broadsides and managing to hit torpedoes and things like that is really the sum of the game. And this is sort of accented quite nicely, I think, by playing the campaign, where you're going to get a lot of battles that can be, I would say, auto-resolved, but that's not necessarily true, because auto-resolve really isn't a thing in this game. Let's show you what's going on. So here's my fleet. Now, as per Mountain Blade, as you can see, you have an army. In this case, you have a fleet. You start with a destroyer. I think that was my original ship. Since then, I've added a destroyer leader, and a cruiser and an escort carrier, which is a fairly small carrier with a couple of flights worth of torpedo bombers and Hellcats. It's not a big carrier. Some of those cost a lot more. And as you win battles, you will gain war bonds, which allow you to buy more stuff, and you will also level up, which unlock the bigger ships. So I've unlocked almost all the ships in the campaign after about 3 hours of play. And now we're going to fight against this cruiser. Now, I have 5 ships, and it's 1 cruiser. Chances are that cruiser's going to die fairly easily. Let's give it a try. We're just going to leave the ships on default, and we're just going to see them go. Now, the escort carrier is going to launch a flight of torpedo bombers right at the cruiser. The destroyers are going to attempt to engage and torpedo it. And we might take a little bit of damage from cruiser broadsides, although it seems to be steaming right at us, so probably not. And then most likely the cruiser will explode. Yep, those are the torpedo bombers. It's basically dead. So it'll probably take one salvo to blow it up. The torpedoes did significant damage to it. Most of its stuff is broken. It's trying to retreat at this point. The destroyers will chase it down and kill it. Now, that didn't actually require any intervention from me. And most of the battles in the campaign, this is the Pacific campaign that I've been playing, have involved, frankly... Ooh, that might hit. Oh, thankfully it didn't. That would have been nasty if I'd lost my cruiser to a volley of torpedoes, or that's possible that it might happen again. There we go. It's dead. I took a little bit of damage on my lead destroyer, but it should be fine. That didn't really require any intervention. A lot of the fights that you have in this don't really require any intervention. Some of the missions are a little bit challenging. The one that I'm about to go into is quite difficult, because this is a convoy raid where I actually have to go up against a light carrier and a heavy cruiser along with a destroyer escort and destroy as many of these supply ships as possible, preferably without losing too many parts of my fleet. You can salvage ships after they've been destroyed, but it costs, I think it's about 30% of their overall cost to salvage them and bring them back to full health. So repairs are free if you can get to a port, but alright, we will attempt to do this fight. I think this fight quite nicely demonstrates the game at its best when you're engaging against a large number of enemy ships. And you have to actually worry because you're fairly evenly matched. The main problem with the campaign is that most of the battles you're not evenly matched at all. Like, you overpower pretty much everybody. And it actually turns into a bit of a grind for war bonds and levels at that point. Because if you don't have enough missions to do, you're attacking convoys, you're attacking ports. You'd think attacking ports would actually be difficult. It really isn't, which is a bit strange. You'd think it would be certainly more difficult than it actually is, but it's not. Okay, I think what I'm thinking about trying to torpedo the carrier, which could be a little bit risky. If I send all of my torpedoes and Hellcats in the direction of the carrier, then that might do the job. Okay, so sent them in there to launch an attack. Everything else we can just kind of have on engage mode for the time being. There we go. So this should now be launching its flights of torpedo bombers and fighters. It's hard to keep track of because for some reason the flights of planes that you send out don't actually appear on the tactical map. I don't know why that is. Even if you zoom in, you don't actually see them. They're quite hard to... I don't really know what direction they're going in. I told them to attack the carrier, but they seem to be going... Are they going towards the carrier now? I certainly hope so. Anyway. When you get a good fight like this, which is quite an engaging mission, which I have to say is kind of the minority of the campaign, then things do get a bit interesting. I mean, I've just retreated with my destroyer leader because I don't actually want it to engage here. It'll probably get murdered. And they have a fairly nasty force that I'm going to have to try and deal with. And it could be a problem to deal with things like torpedo bombers coming from that carrier, which is why we're trying to sink it quickly. Yep, our escort carrier just took a torpedo by the looks of it. And for some reason it's now attacking the wrong target, even though I told it to attack the light carrier. Actually not sure what's going on with that. I think the problem with it is that even in the fairly large fleet engagements, there's not really a lot that you personally can do. You can give your fleet these... I wouldn't even call them detailed orders. Even with the waypoint system, it's not maybe that great. You can just tell them to attack or retreat or defend an area. And you can take control of really one at a time. Now, unless you want to micromanage heavily and, like, maybe put the speed down and just be very careful with how you're micromanaging your ships, because you can unload a salvo. Let's say I unload this... Damn, I hate it when it does that. Don't left-click, because that will happen. But we can unload a salvo into this cargo ship. And then I need to... Trying to get the camera back on it. There it is. Okay. And then switch over to this destroyer. Try and turn it around and get torpedo range going on here. And then switch to that destroyer and kind of micromanage that way. Outside of that, it's not really a game that makes itself too easy to control. I don't know why the cruiser is now going in this direction. Does it actually have range? I mean, it still has range, so it can probably do whatever it wants. I'm a bit worried that we'll actually lose this fight, because taking damage on my... For some reason, their light carrier took no damage, even though I launched my entire flight of bombers at it. I don't know why that is. It's hard to say where the bombers even went, because it doesn't show you on the tactical map. It gives you a fairly depressing lack of feedback there, which is not brilliant. Certainly not a big fan of that. Okay. I'm going to order it to attack the destroyer escort there. And who else have we got? Yeah, we'll just go in there. We lost the destroyer, which is not ideal. Torpedoes coming in. Hopefully they don't hit the cruiser. And no, they won't. This is the kind of time when you might want to micromanage just to try and avoid things like torpedoes. The game is tense. I'll certainly give it that. Because you can be obliterated so damn fast. If you get hit by torpedoes, chances are your ship is sinking. It's really as simple as that. Guns are pretty effective, obviously, at longer ranges, but torpedoes are just absolutely brutal in what they can do to your destroyers, or even just your bigger ships. As you noticed earlier, a flight of torpedo bombers got a cruiser down to next to nothing. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. There we go. And that one's popped. And fire another salvo just to bring it down. And then I think maybe we can try and finish off this destroyer with another set of fire. There we go. Cool. That worked out fairly well. I don't really know what I was expecting, honestly. I think maybe just on the simulation level, those that really like naval engagements were probably looking for a little bit more than this. Whether it just be detail on the ships, more control. You can't really do anything with these subsystems. It's just a random chance of them getting damaged, which will give your ship debuffs for fairly obvious reasons and disable weapons. But you can't really control anything or micromanage crew or anything along those lines. Oh, Christ. I think they missed. Yeah, it looked like they missed. Thank God for that. That would have been ugly. Do I even have any of my... I don't even know where my fighters are at this point. I don't have a clue. What? My carrier retreated? I didn't tell it to do that. It must have moved outside the battle area. Well, that's bloody annoying. Jeez. Okay, let's try and obliterate this cruiser here. Just give it a full broadside. Although it's firing torpedoes at me as well, so that's not too pleasant. Just hoping I don't get hit by him. There we go. Good number of hits. There we go. Magazine explosion, weapon damage, lots of debuffs. It's gonna sink now. In a minute. It's almost like... How do you even do a game that involves controlling a large amount of fleets? Because there are certainly some games that have attempted to do naval warfare. Some. A lot of them have done it during the Age of Sail. And I think maybe that's a little bit easier to manage, because gun range isn't as ridiculous. You're not having to worry about things like torpedoes and airplanes and anything like that. So it's a bit more of a knife fight. Whereas here, you're engaging from very long ranges, and you're attempting to maneuver as best you can. But that's really all the game boils down to. And is that the game's fault? Probably not. What else would it really do here? I think outside of more micromanagement of crew, which I think in doing so would also restrict the number of ships you could effectively control, then I don't think there's a lot you can do with it. The main problem, I think, is that even in that situation, unfortunately, it means that the game is still a little bit dull. There's not really a great deal to be seen. I think the campaign mode's lackluster battles have a decent amount of responsibility for that. Most of the fights, with the exception of some of the really good missions, will generally be a complete whitewash, and you can just auto-attack. And it can sometimes take a full minute for your ships, even on 6x speed, to even engage in the first place. Actually, I think we really need that destroyer killed more so than anything else, so let's just order them to do that instead. The individual control is okay, but it reminds me of an extremely simplified version of Starfleet Command, the Star Trek game, which was basically tall ships in space, ultimately. There we go, have them move alongside, and then we should be able to engage freely. They still have that carrier, so we're going to try and blow that up before we take any more damage to the ship. Should be easy enough to do. Do we have range? Oh, it's attacking the wrong target, which is weird because I told it to attack the carrier. I suppose because the carrier wasn't in range, it was going after something else, which makes a decent degree of sense. We're just going to steam towards the carrier and take that down. Is it even possible to make a really interesting naval RTS without getting bogged down in micromanagement? And if you don't get bogged down in micromanagement, do you get a game that ultimately feels a little bit too simplistic? Because I think that's maybe the issue that Victory at Sea has. I've been trying to really get a feel for why exactly I'm not a huge fan of it. Because I do like big naval engagements. That's cool. I think a lot of people do, actually. You can see I think there's torpedo nets out on the side, which is a pretty cool level of detail. I do like the idea of that. But I've not really been engaged too much by this game. Every now and again I'll get a good fight, but most of it's just been a complete stomp. There doesn't seem to be a great degree of strategy involved in that. But if you put more micromanagement in the game, it would make fleet command much more difficult. I think that the tactical view could definitely do with some improvement. More traditional RTS controls would probably do the game more justice than what we currently have here. Especially when you have a large fleet, what you probably want to do is divide your fleet into squadrons. Like, say you have a squadron of 3 or 4 torpedo boats, and they move in formation to a specific target. You can't really do that. You can control all ships on and control all ships off, and that's it. You can't, like, designate a squadron or anything like that and say, hey, squadron, go over here and do this. So maybe it's just the interface that has a bit of a problem there. And perhaps it's overly reliant on the direct control, which would be fine if there was more to do in the direct control other than just move to broadside fire guns over and over again and occasionally have to lead torpedoes when relevant. Maybe that's it. I have a feeling that... I say I have been trying to nail this whole thing down, but I think maybe that's got something to do with the main issues that I actually have with the game. And that's why I feel that things are just a little bit oversimplified. The AI is not brilliant either, so that's probably got something to do with it. You can turn up the AI difficulty in the historic battles, but you can't do it in points battle, which is where you get to do custom fleets, and in the campaign. It's possible that the other campaigns are a bit more difficult than the Pacific campaign, but they weren't specific there. It's also worth noting that those wanting to play the Axis forces can't do that outside of the historic battles and points battle. There is no campaign for that. So some people might be disappointed by only being able to play the US and the UK forces. Hang on a... Oh, did it retreat? Yeah. No? It got blown up? How... what destroyed my carrier? They literally have no more ships with guns on them. What? That I have no explanation for. I'm pretty sure these oil tankers do not have guns on them. That would be a tad silly. Maybe they were just planes just still flying around. Well, that was a victory apparently, but we did lose a bunch of ships, which is not brilliant. No, we only lost one ship, even though it claimed that 2 ships have been... Okay, I'm just scratching my head at this point. I have no idea what it's doing. Alright, so you'll see I've unlocked a bunch more battleships, and then I'm just going to go try and get out of range of the Japanese, because my fleet's a little bit beaten up. If I can go around the side here, I can go and dock with one of my ports for repairs. That supply convoy probably doesn't want to engage with me. You can see very sort of Mountain Blade-esque. Which is kind of neat. I'm tempted just to attack one of those ports, just so I can actually gain repairs. Empress Augusta Bay is one of ours, so we can go there. But that's really where the game... That's all the game has to offer, unfortunately. Which might be enough for a lot of people. For me, especially with the campaign mode, the progression is kind of cool, and buying new ships is always going to be fun, but it's not fun enough to keep me playing. With Mountain Blade, you had all sorts of things, like the ability to upgrade your ships and, like, level the... Well, ships, what am I talking about? Your heroes, level them up with different skills, give them different equipment. Here, you can't customize your ships, you can only customize your fleet with these ships. Yeah, these are the ones that you can have, and this takes a lot of work. Like, if I want an Iowa-class battleship, that's 80,000 war bonds. I think that's more war bonds than I've acquired in over 3 hours of play, just to get one of those. And in order to get that stuff, assuming you're not burning money on salvaging ships, I'm leaving this torpedo boat under just because I can't be bothered to use it again, it dies too quickly. It will take you forever to get these really big ships, which is maybe not what you want. So the campaign mode is a good idea, but it doesn't have enough going for it. It doesn't have enough interesting missions, and all of the harassment and even the port invasion is often just ridiculously easy. For no reason. You'd think that the Japanese would defend their ports a little better, but for some reason they don't seem to. Let's go find a port and engage. Hopefully we'll find one that's easy. I've taken about 4 or 5 different ports, and they've maybe had 1 ship defending them. Even at, like, defense level 2, defense level 3, or whatever. This, I can't even see the defense level of that. I'm gonna go... Assuming the pathfinding works, you can actually bump into land for some reason. This apparently has 3 ships. Defense level 3. This should be fairly tricky, right? No. It has 2 torpedo boats and a light cruiser, which is going to have absolutely no chance whatsoever against my fleet. If the torpedo boats get good shots off, I might lose a ship here, but basically, this is probably going to be a fairly free port. It's weird, because when you attack a castle in something like Mountain Blade, it's going to be a very challenging experience for you most of the time. But taking over ports in Victory at Sea is ludicrously easy. I keep making the comparisons because it's just the closest thing that I can compare the campaign mode to, honestly. We're just going to put on auto attack and just see what happens here. I wish there was just an auto resolve for the really easy battles. I think that would take away an element of the grind quite nicely. Although I'd prefer all battles to at least be challenging in some way. Most of them are not. The only difference, I would say, in this and, say, Mountain Blade, where it's very unlikely that if you have 99 people in your army and the other guy is 1 person, a lucky torpedo shot will still sink one of your ships. So you do still have to be fairly aware of that. Okay, our escort carrier is probably launching stuff at it, I think. I can't tell because it doesn't show up on the map, but I'm sure it's probably... No, it hasn't launched a damn thing. I actually have no idea what it's doing right now. So I suppose we'll order them to go and attack the light cruiser. There we go. And torpedo boats will be a little annoying until my ships get into range, then they just get driven off and killed. So, this will be the fight. Here it is. There's the torpedoes. And they did hit the destroyer. All the others missed, and the torpedo boats will now die, which is what happens. One sunk, the other one will sink quite shortly, I imagine. Taking a bit more damage from the light cruiser. In fact, I'm actually going to control my... Oh! My destroyer got blown up by the cruiser. That is unfortunate. But this is still going to be a win one way or the other. There's no way that a port actually survives this, so... I don't know, maybe it would be better if they were more adequately defended. That perhaps might be more enjoyable. So yeah, that's the campaign mode. It's... I can really only describe it as alright. Like, it certainly has its moments, and every now and again I'll have a really fun naval fight, but most of the fights are fairly dull. In this case, we're going to lose a couple of ships, but now all the ships in defense are gone, so we take the port. Nice and easy. Get a few war bonds from taking the port, which should be enough to repair what we've lost. And then we just gain access to another one. And that was, what, defense level 3? Yeah, defense level 2 is even easier. We can fix up some repairs. We can salvage our destroyer there. It's actually quite costly by the looks of it. So I did lose quite a bit more than I'm used to there, which I guess is fine. That's good. It is possible, by the way, that it's just the case that I haven't played for long enough to really find the challenging components of the game. That is entirely possible. It might be the case. But that means that the campaign takes a long time to really get rolling. After about 3 hours, I'm only now running into missions where my ships are actually getting sunk. I'd certainly prefer it to be a little bit more challenging from the very outset. Alright, I'll show you the historic... I did show you the Bismarck battle, didn't I? I'm just trying to remember what I actually showed you already. But I can give you a look at the points battle and things like that as well. So if we go to custom battle, you have 3 options here. 400 points, 900 points, and 2,000. If you want to see the biggest battle, then we can do that. We could give the enemy a bunch of Bismarcks. You know, if you want battleship versus battleships, here's 3 Bismarcks. And I think the biggest ships in the game are the US ships. So I can take 3 North Carolinas, I suppose. They're all pretty much the same. And that's also a bit of a problem there. There's not really a big difference between them. Sort of minor stat differences, but I suppose they're also concerned about accuracy there. These all have exactly the same guns on them, but the Iowa class is the fastest. In fact, actually, is the Iowa class better in every way? It seems to be, but it is longer, so that means it is easier to hit with torpedoes. But if I look at the Iowa class compared to the North Carolina has both less armor and less hit points and costs the same, and is slower. So, I suppose if I want the biggest ships in the game, I want 3 Iowas. There we go. Or actually, I can only get 2 Iowas. 2 Iowas versus 3 Bismarcks. And we can probably throw an Essex carrier in there as well. There we go. You can randomize the fleets as well. This is all really cool, but this is where you notice the glaring lack of multiplayer, which is, I think, actually a fairly significant problem. Surprisingly enough, customizable point battles are the kinds of things that you would really want to do with friends. You know, you want to do a bit of a multiplayer battle there. Sort of Warhammer-esque. The problem is you can only play against the AI, and the difficulty for the AI can't really be customized with points battles, even though it can be customized with historical battles. Which is a bit weird. I'm not really 100% sure what's up with that. Okay. The range of the Iowa is pretty big. Probably about as large as the Bismarck by the looks of it. Bismarck should hopefully take damage. I don't even know if my dive bombers have actually gone in. It's hard to say at this point. They probably have. But who the hell knows. I do want to also keep my escort carrier out of gun range. For obvious reasons. There we go. So that was the torpedo bombers hitting, I think. And then we can get our guns together. Should be able to... There we go. That's one of the Bismarcks hit pretty badly. And that's pretty much the point battle. And you can make these pretty complex by having large battles of fairly small ships, or you can just go for the battleships, which is much easier if you just want to fight with big boats and have them blow each other up. It's decidedly okay, is probably the best way I can describe it. I don't think it's mechanically complex enough for purists to really care too much about, but also it's not really complex enough for me to care too much about because the campaign battles often end up just being exactly the same over and over again. And the answer apparently is 3 Bismarcks soundly beat. I don't know. Maybe I win this anyway, but 3 Bismarcks do a pretty good job of smashing 2 Iowas. Of course, it's not something we would ever really know historically, but hey, it's pretty cool nonetheless. If all you really want to do is just click on stuff and have it explode, then I suppose it does that, but I think perhaps those who enjoy the genre might be looking for something a little bit more in-depth. And those who are perhaps just casual appreciators of the idea of naval warfare, again, probably... Oh, and the crew died. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, perhaps, again, want a little bit more than just maneuvering ships around and firing guns. But again, I think the problem is mostly inherent to the genre itself as opposed to anything else, and you're probably going to be able to figure out exactly whether or not you like the look of this, although the price tag may put you off. It is $25, which could be a bit of a hard sell. They are claiming they're going to put an Access campaign in and it's going to be free, which will expand the amount of content the game has. But as I said, I find the campaign to be a bit grindy and overly repetitive because there simply is not enough to do. There's not enough customization involved in it, and most of the battles play out very similar and can just be won with auto attack with a couple of exceptions. But it's alright. You know, I've had a decent amount of fun with it. It's not a brilliant game. I'd say it's decidedly average, but that might be enough in this genre. This is not exactly a genre that's oversaturated. So people are looking for almost anything within this genre to fill the gap. Victory at Sea is... Oh, man. I find it very hard to come to a conclusion on games like this because it's just been an equal mix of this has kind of been okay fun and this has been really repetitive and slow and dull. But I suppose the speed is something that is to be expected in a naval RTS. It's actually something that seems fairly reasonable. It's a decent enough effort. It's okay. It might be the kind of thing that you want to pick up on sale if you have a passing interest in the genre, especially if they happen to improve the game with future patches. I think the lack of multiplayer is a fairly glaring omission. That's the kind of thing that would probably have given it longevity and really made it a good value package. As it stands, 6 historical scenarios, a couple of custom battles, and the 3 campaigns, which all sort of play out in the same way and don't have access to Axis forces, and also don't give you a huge amount to do, so they end up being highly repetitive, means it may be a tough sell to some people, although I imagine the purists that are really interested in this particular genre might pick it up simply because there aren't that many other choices around. There you go, Victory at Sea. Hard to come to a real conclusion on that. Hopefully I've given you enough information to at least assist in your purchase decision or lack thereof. My name's been TotalBiscuit, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.